Hey, it's Ryan with this week's Mille Lacs fishing report. It's mid-September, water temps are in the mid-60s, and the fall bite is on. We'll get started by touching on the muskies. My best advice now and going a little bit later into the fall is going to continue to be hitting those deeper weed lines. Good green cabbage and 12 feet of water or so is an excellent area to find fish. There's a couple different techniques that work well that I tend to go to, one of which is simply bucktails, but another one that I really like is glide baits. Glide baits, I've talked about them a lot in the past, but they really get fish to move, especially if they're being lethargic. The key to moving a fish with a glide bait is you can always come back at a later time, whether it be during a moon phase or at sunset, and you can come back to them with that same bait, or else you can try something different when you return. Another pattern I really like now until much later in the fall is hitting rock humps. Rock humps that top out anywhere from 3 to 6 feet of water are some of my favorites. Oftentimes what I do is I cast right up on top with crankbaits, try to make a little bottom contact and pull them right off the deeper edges. It's produced a lot of nice fish for me over the years. For the guys that are into trolling, the bite's going to continue to be out on the mud flats. Trolling baits, big baits, fast, 4 to 6 miles an hour down the edges and points of the flats is going to continue to work until quite a bit later in the fall. We're not going to see any tulipy movement for quite some time, so that would be my recommendation for trolling. Moving on to the walleyes, there's a couple of different bites going on, what I would consider to be a shallow bite and a deep bite. The shallow bite has been working best for me during the daytime. I've been going right up on top of reefs that top out in that 8 to 10 foot of water range, and I'm throwing bobbers and leeches, or what other people I've talked to have been doing, they've been using bobbers and crawlers. It doesn't seem like this is a wind related bite. I've done really well in calm weather, I've done well in windy weather. We're doing very well up there throughout the daytime hours, catching both smaller fish, but we're also getting our keepers. The live sonar really helps for this. It allows you to cover a reef, scan around and see if there's schools of fish moving by. A lot of times on these reefs you don't have to use the live sonar simply because the fish that are up on tops of these reefs are moving pretty quickly. You'll see the schools move by throughout the day. The shallow rock pattern is going to continue to get better as we get later in the fall. A few other techniques that are going to really start to shine here are going to be trolling crankbaits shallow, whether it be in the evening or into the night. The other two that really work well at this time are going to be throwing little paddle tail swim baits as well as pitching jigs and minnows. The deep bite has been very predictable over the last few weeks, but it's been more of a morning evening bite. I haven't been doing as well during the daytime on the gravel bars, the deeper gravel bars and the mud flats, but in the mornings and evenings we're definitely able to go out there and get our keepers. We've simply been using bobbers and leeches. I know some guys are doing bobbers and crawlers out there as well. Leeches have been pretty tough to get a hold of, but if you can get out there right at sunset, get a bobber out, you're more than likely going to get some fish. On the gravel bars, I like to go right up on top of the gravel bar in the evening. A lot of times that'll be 24, 26 feet of water or so. If I can find some rocks that are up on top, that makes things all the better. On the mud flats, what I typically do is I just find a point on a mud flat. If you want to really put the odds in your favor, take the time to scan a few different flats, a few different points, and find which one has the most activity around it, be it bait fish or game fish sitting on the edges. A lot of times those walleyes might be a little bit tougher to catch during the daytime hours, but in the evening you get a flurry right at sunset. For the guys who want to troll, we're getting towards the tail end of lead core season, but I would imagine that a guy could still do pretty good on lead core during the day. The edges of the mud flats have a lot of fish on them right now, so running your baits down those edges, 28 to 32 feet of water, I think will produce pretty well for a guy. And lastly is the smallmouth, and that bite has been fantastic over the last few days. We've had some excellent fishing out here on a variety of different techniques. My recommendation is if you're looking for a depth, I always say 12 feet of water is a great place to start on this lake. But depth really hasn't been that important. We've caught fish as shallow as 3 feet of water, and we've been catching fish all the way out into the 20s. So there's a lot of different depths where you can find them, but I would definitely recommend taking your time and trying to find the best structure. So if you pick a reef, scan around that reef, try to find the most prominent rocks on that reef and fish that area. If there's a good high spot on the reef, maybe it's gravel, maybe it's rock on top, fish those high spots as well. A lot of times those will be very attractive to the smallmouth. The techniques we've been getting them on are all over the map. It's been a lot of fun out here. We've been using moving baits such as jerbaits and Minnesota rigs, which is just a Minnesota legal Alabama rig. But we've also been catching fish on old reliables like swim baits and Ned rigs. If you're looking to get up to Mille Lacs on some fall smallmouth action, now is the time. It's going to continue for a few more weeks now. You're going to see some of the best fishing of the year over the coming weeks, and you're also going to see some of the biggest fish. I hope these tips help you out, and good luck fishing.